Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from I'm Your Life. Our deal is off. If you don't like it, just quit. Let's jump right in. I used to work for a company that had a weird work culture. Everyone, including CEO, directors, and the owner, worked way too much. And some would proudly say that they could only sleep after drinking because they have so much work they can't turn off. I was working 12 hours a day plus commute, all without overtime, while being paid less than market average for 8 hours. I was dumb. I loved what I did. The company has a big name in my country, so it helped build my curriculum, and I had the chance of tackling very interesting projects. So I saw it as a stepping stone to better jobs. About 8 months in though, I started to break. I had stopped exercising and gained weight. My mental health was taking a big dive, and I would wake up at 4 a.m. thinking about things I wasn't able to finish, and then I couldn't fall back asleep. So I handed my resignation. The CEO, who I had a good work relationship with, called me in to ask what was going on. My director was present. I was honest. He asked what they could do to keep me in the team. I said we desperately needed more people in our department. My director nodded, and I had to start working 1 hour later so I could at least go for a walk every morning. He agreed with both of those things, said that they were already working on the budget to get 2 more people to our department, and he'd ask RH to post the openings. My director had vacation planned, and during that couple of weeks, I got to work 1 hour later. Got stinky eyes from my coworkers, but oh well, started to feel better. Interviews happened during that time, and by the end of the 2 weeks, we had 2 new members for our team. Then, on the 3rd week, when my director is back, we are all called into a meeting about 2 big projects that will require every hand on deck. Company was preparing for an IPO, and we had to work on it. Second day of the week, director calls me for a chat and says I can't be getting in late. I said I wasn't late, my hours were changed to start later at the talk with the CEO. She says that I can't start at a different time than everyone else and that everything was too busy for it anyway. I either accept it or I quit. I was sure she felt she could spare me now that we had 2 new members, or that I wouldn't want to leave because having helped organize an IPO is great for your resume. Not worth it. I quit. She was surprised. Notice in my country is usually a month. Unless the employer asks you not to go, they'd still pay, but if you're angry or whatever, you wouldn't have time to steal information or cause damage. I get to work the next day and find out one of the new hires had also quit. Too much work for her. I see my boss calling HR and asking them to cancel the email they had talked about earlier, while throwing glances at me. I'm sure she was going to ask me to not show up anymore, but with one person leaving, it would be harder to handle everything. I keep working as usual, don't want to damage my professional image. They find someone to replace me that week, since they still had resumes from the previous cycle. Second previously hired person quits, replacement quits, then second replacement showed up, and I wasn't allowed to train him in case the first one quit because of something bad I said. But he broke a record and gave up after the very first day, all before the end of my 3rd week of notice. That week, I had gone through a great interview for another company, yay lunch hour, and I believe they called my company for reference. HR must have told my director, since she suddenly started acting friendly to me and would stop my coworkers whenever they made snarky remarks about me leaving. Did I mention that the work environment there sucked? First day of my 4th week, director calls me and says maybe we were both too harsh in our decisions, that she is willing to allow me to get to work 30 minutes later if I cut my lunch hour by 30 minutes, and she is fine ignoring my quitting since it was clearly a decision made by impulse. I said I would consider staying if she matched my offer from the other company plus 10%. Went back to the previously agreed starting work 1 hour later, and I would have to have everything in writing before the end of the day, since I wouldn't want to screw the other company over. She said I was doing her dirty, in better terms, Something hurting the company, no loyalty, think of your future. After everything we've done for you, you are wasting an opportunity. You aren't being professional. Why would you even think of quitting? When she said that last bit, I smiled and said it was her idea, after all. That we had a deal I was willing to uphold despite everything bad that working there had. But she said the deal was off, and if I didn't like it, I should quit. So I just complied. I didn't like it, I quit. We had a third replacement for me that week. I trained her. She lasted 2 weeks. The 2 extra people for the department were never brought in, as they were trying to cut costs to better prepare for the IPO. 2 months later, the whole team was different, except the director, who was there holding strong. CEO said he was sad to see me leave, but he understood it. HR confirmed to me at my exit interview that he had been talking to owner and directors on how to change the work culture they had been cultivating in order to retain talents better. HR friend later told me that the owner stopped that nonsense. Oh well, I tried. I love how the higher-ups in the company always talk about having loyalty to the company. But in most cases, loyalty is corporate speak for willingness to be exploited. And OP, how could you do this after all the company's done for you? What? Like driving OP to a complete mental breakdown? One thing the boss in this case obviously never learned is that if you're going to give somebody an ultimatum, you have to be ready and willing to follow through regardless of which way that ultimatum goes. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Moshaz. Buy what I can afford? Okay, let's jump right in. Last month, I was shopping around for a washing machine. For context, I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, it's a place. Yes, it's in Africa. Yes, we have electricity and running water. And I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so I look more like a 23-year-old, but I'm 32. Also, I'm a photographer and I dress for comfort, so I more often than not look homeless. Back to the story. I looked up what I wanted online and saw it was available at one of the major chains. But since I was free, I decided to go to the store in person. I went straight to the section with laundry equipment and one of the salesmen came to me. I was busy checking out the model I wanted, opening the door, reading the spec sheet and whatnot. So after he greeted me, we started talking about it. He asked if I'm interested in buying it and I told him I'm considering it and asked for the price. It was just shy of $900. I knew from their website. But since I was in the store, I asked if they had in-store discounts or discount for return customers and inquired about their payment plans. I had bought a cooker there a few months before, so I knew all these things existed. And while I could afford to buy the washer outright, it would have left me a little cash strapped and I wanted to spread the payment over 2 or 3 weeks. Also, I'm frugal, so I always look for discounts. At around this time, a well-dressed couple came into the same section, probably looking to buy something as well. And as soon as the salesman saw them, he walked at them and left me hanging. I called to him like, hey, I wasn't done. And he said, I'm serving a client now. I'll come back to you in a bit. In the meantime, look around for something you can afford. I was furious, but I'm a bit of a coward. So I walked away and went to the customer service station and started making my inquiry all over again. The attendant offered to call a sales agent for me, same guy. Apparently, he's the go-to guy for washing machines, but I declined. I told her I already knew what I wanted, I just needed someone to help me with the paperwork and payment, and I'll be on my way. She did just that. I paid the full amount out of spite, and as we were finishing up, the salesman came up to her claiming I was his client, which I denied, and the attendant listed herself as the sales agent. It turns out they earn a 10% commission from each sale, and the guy just missed out on a decent bonus. Salesmen earn around $300 plus commissions monthly. As I left, I turned to him and said, turns out I could afford it, with the biggest grin I could muster. Felt good. Best part? The couple he ditched me for left without buying anything. We really need to start treating everybody the same regardless of what they look like. Because you never know if that person who comes in looking like a hobo is actually a person that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Your job in retail and sales isn't to judge people, it's to take their money. This next story comes to us from Mostly Mad 1. I order you to keep your hands off my power generators. Let's jump right in. This was years ago. I was deployed to Afghanistan as part of a provincial reconstruction team with the mission of helping the Afghan provinces rebuild critical infrastructure like schools, roads, and the like. I was part of the Air Force communications team, whose primary job it was to keep our team's on-site communications up and operational, so that we could always communicate back to headquarters. This meant it must be operational as close to 24/7 365 as possible, as we were in the middle of the war in Afghanistan. Our setup was a bit unique. As far as I know, the other team sites were within a fortified compound where the team would live and work. Our site, however, was 4 walls barely 6 feet tall on a tiny compound. We lived amongst the populace in safe houses. The commo guys were housed about a 3 to 5 minute drive from the compound in a tiny house. The reasoning being that since we were the only ones required to be on site 24/7, then we needed to be close. Plus, we were also the lowest ranked, and of the 2 houses, the one we stayed in was a dump. It was run down, white, 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2-bath that we shared. Think duplex house cut in half, no walls or gate. We had our own attachment of Afghan guards who not only provided us with protection, but also usually our meals. The other safe house where the rest of the team stayed was comparably a mansion. A beautiful 3-story emerald green trim, stained glass windows with large bedrooms, huge dining room, living room, and huge kitchen. This was where all the cooks, the higher-ups, translators, maintainers, etc. all stayed. Problem being that it was a good 35 to 45 minute drive away along some winding mountain dirt roads and mud brick Afghan villages. Were we jealous? Yeah, we knew we were getting the shaft, but it is what it is and we made the best of it. In fact, my current love of Afghan cuisine stemmed directly from the Afghan guards' cooking. Anyway, we made it suck less by only having to work 8 hours, as all of the commo guys would rotate to keep each other fresh. Everyone else generally worked 12s. Since we were on site all the time, we would do other people's job, mainly things like refueling generators, so we had power through the night as the diesel generators we used had fuel tanks that would last about 10 hours before needing to be refueled. Usually, it was the maintainer's job to keep them refueled, but they weren't about to make an hour-and-a-half round trip in the middle of the night to refuel the generator, so we did it. We operated like this for a good 6 months without issue, when one morning, after just doing turnover from my midnight shift, the E6 in charge of the maintenance team barged into the common room. You, come outside. He points to me and my replacement before storming outside. With a raised brow at my colleague, we follow him outside. I'm ordering you guys right now to keep your darn hands off my generators, he yells the moment we are out of the building. You mean you don't want us to do your job for you in the middle of the night? I almost ask, but instead opt for, why? What happened? You see, our 4-man team had a teensy tiny small problem. To protect the idiot, I shall name him Airman UXO. You see, UXO was not the sharpest tool in the shed. He once picked up an old inert mortar round he found outside our safe house and thought it would be a good idea to bang it with a rock in an attempt to open it while next to the safe house we were sleeping in. Hence, Airman Unexploded Ordnance had a reputation for getting into trouble when bored. Apparently, while UXO was on swing shift, in his infinite boredom, he had done something wrong with the generator the night before, as he was prone to mess with stuff he didn't need to be messing with. As per usual, the backlash landed on the rest of us, which, fine, now we have even less duties to take care of, okay. But I needed to verify exactly what he meant by no touchy. So I asked, hey tech sergeant, by don't touch, you mean don't touch at all? You don't want us to fuel them at night? He was still hot and with as much venom as he could muster, yelled at us, no, I don't want you idiots anywhere near my generators. I'll fuel them before going home, and we'll be back early enough to ensure they're fueled again in the morning. I couldn't help but smile as I thought, yeah, right, and responded with a crisp, Roger that, Sergeant. I left to go find my supervisor to verify that the order was lawful and that I should obey it. The thing about this maintenance lead was that no one really liked him. He made his junior do like 90% of the work while he fiddled around with this $1,000 camera he brought with. That, or he disgustingly flirted with the female translator we had. We barely saw him doing any work. My supervisor, upon being told what we'd been ordered, just shrugged. He ordered you all not to touch them? Fine. His problem to deal with now. So a few weeks go by. Of course, it isn't the tech sergeant who comes in early to fuel the generators, but his subordinate who did the majority of the work. So the first day after his subordinate left to go on leave back to the States, I reminded the tech sergeant as I came on site that he would need to ensure he was back on site at 0700 to fuel the generator. Don't tell me how to do my job, I'll be here. I barely kept my eyes from rolling and gave him a roger that before going inside for shift change. Shift goes without a hitch, but as the sun starts to light the sky of the valley, I begin to wonder if the tech sergeant is going to make it in. I'm alone on the compound, having an inner debate on if I should just refuel them myself or not. On one hand, my mission was to ensure that communications remained up and operational. On the other, I had standing orders to not touch the generator. The clock on the office wall kept ticking, seemingly louder and louder as I knew after the hands past 0700 that the generator could fail at any moment, and the site would lose power and comms would be cut. I went outside to the generator shack. The active and backup generators were inside. Without touching them, I went back over the crash course we had on them from earlier on how to flip them over in the event of an emergency. Confident I knew how to start up and flip the power over to the other generator, I made the decision to maliciously comply with the orders I'd been given. I know. I could have easily filled the generator up with a little bit of fuel just to keep it running until he got there to do his job, but knowing him, he was dicking around instead of ensuring his job was done. So, now knowing a power failure was imminent, I reached back to the HQ and informed them that a potential short outage could possibly occur so that they were aware. Told them that we expected it to not be longer than a half hour as we could potentially have a generator issue. It would take a bit of time to transfer over to the other generator. Shortly after making the call, at about 10 after the hour, the telltale signs of a generator dying began to bring the power down to the site. I go back out to the generator shack, snickering, because I knew it will be a pain for the tech sergeant to fix the now empty diesel motor and get it back in running condition. Not like you can just refuel the thing like a gas motor and get it running again. I reach the backup generator, flip the proper switches, give the key a turn, and there is no power to the backup generator. The car battery on it was dead. What the hell? Why isn't this generator maintained properly? Tech Sergeant was supposed to be in charge of ensuring the backup was running at least weekly. This was supposed to be simple. Power goes out, I followed orders. I then bring the site back up, no big deal. Now, my head races as I try to figure out how to get power back in under a half hour. I snap my fingers and grab the toolkit and head to the empty generator. I find the battery case for it and I start uncoupling it from the dead generator so I can put it in the backup. And wouldn't you know it, as I'm putting the last few turns to install the battery, Tech Sergeant finally rolls into the compound half an hour late, and immediately notices me over at his generator with the wires hanging out. I'm covered in grease and filth as I stand up, while looking directly at him, crank the backup generator, and bring power back to the compound. He starts screaming at me. "What do you think you're doing? Why are you touching my generators? I told you not to touch them. I ordered you." I throw a wrench down at his feet and yell back, "Well, maybe if you'd been here on time to do your job and refuel the generators, I wouldn't have to be out here fixing your backup generator so I can do my job." And brush past him and yelling over my shoulder, "Excuse me, I have to call HQ and let them know we are back up and operational." As I go inside, I see the compound commander with a red face go storming outside screaming for Tech Sergeant to come to his office. With a nod from my supervisor, I make my call. Normally, I'm all mission first, but sometimes you need to put a pompous NCO in his place. OP said down in the comments that this guy pretty much had it out for him going forward. He even got written up by him once for unsafe driving when he broke the tires loose in an empty bed stick shift Tacoma on gravel. Now, one thing I'm really not understanding from this story is that OP was told not to touch the generators. It was a direct order by somebody that was above him. but yet he turned around and touched the generators anyway. Wouldn't that normally result in some severe consequences for disobeying a direct order? Let me know in the comments down below. Check out OP, linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.